The cockpit was humming with the soft glow of displays as Captain Liam Hayes adjusted the ship's heading, letting the vast, quiet expanse of space stretch out before him. The ether drifted in the deep quiet, miles of emptiness humming just beyond the reinforced hull. He breathed it all in, savoring the thrill that still crept up his spine, no matter how many years he'd spent out here. "Alana, scan for anomalies," he said, his fingers brushing over the controls. The onboard AI flickered to life, a soft feminine voice filling the silence. "Scanning, Captain," Alana replied. "All standard data points appear stable. No anomalies within a 1-parsec radius." "Thanks, Alana. Keep an eye out. Something feels off." Liam's instincts had rarely steered him wrong, and they were tingling now. He had an unsettling sense, as if the universe itself held its breath, something lying in wait, just outside his sensor's reach. It was a familiar feeling that, in his experience, usually led to something remarkable or dangerous. He settled into his chair, gripping the edges tightly, eyes narrowed on the dim glow of distant stars. As he leaned forward, a sudden flash of light streaked across his vision, a white-hot streak that moved in an unnatural, almost deliberate arc. "Alana, what was that?" Liam's voice cut through the silence, sharper than he'd intended. "It appears to be an energy signature, Captain," she replied smoothly, consistent with high-level gravitational interference. "Shall I alter course to investigate?" "Yes, and keep shields on standby. I want full defensive systems primed." The ether tilted slightly, thrusters firing as it angled toward the mysterious streak. Liam's pulse quickened, his heart pounding with anticipation. He'd encountered his fair share of strange phenomena in the depths of space, but something about this was different. A gravitational pull unlike anything he'd felt before, whispering promises of an encounter beyond his understanding. As the ship drew closer, the energy signature grew brighter, revealing a planet that loomed suddenly large on the main viewport. A dark, uncharted world, veiled in thick, violet-hued clouds that churned like storm-laden oceans. And in the center of it all, an object, small, crystalline, almost painfully bright, hung suspended in the air. "Alana, what is that?" he asked, his voice hushed. "I cannot identify it, Captain. The object appears to be radiating a containment field of unknown origin. No readings match known materials or energy sources." He could barely believe what he was seeing. Some force seemed to call to him, urging him to reach out, to dive deeper. Liam exhaled slowly, his fingers brushing across the main console. "Well," he muttered to himself, "guess there's only one way to find out." Suddenly, the entire ship shuddered, the consoles flashing crimson as alarms blared. "Unstable energy detected. Brace for impact." Alana's voice crackled with urgency. The ship jolted, its systems spiraling into disarray. The world spun, twisted, until Liam felt as though he were being wrenched from time and space altogether. He gasped, clinging to his seat as his vision blurred, shapes and colors twisting before his eyes. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, everything went still. He opened his eyes to find himself face to face with her. She was standing in the cockpit, tall and impossibly still, her gaze piercing, like the cold fire of distant stars. Her skin was a shade of silver so soft it was almost ethereal, shimmering like liquid metal under the dim lights. She wore no visible clothing. Instead, silken strands of dark fabric, or perhaps shadow itself, coiled around her form, almost alive in the way they shifted and undulated. Who are you?" Liam managed, his voice wavering. She tilted her head slightly, her eyes like dark pools, endless and inscrutable. "You may call me Amara," she said, her voice soft but echoing as if it had traveled a great distance. "And you, Captain Hayes, have intruded upon my domain." "Your domain?" Liam swallowed, his mind racing as he tried to grasp what was happening. "I'm a researcher exploring the galaxy, cataloging stars, planets, phenomena. I didn't know anyone lived here." "There is much you do not know, Captain," Amara replied, a faint smile curving her lips. But your ignorance does not absolve you. I've watched you approach for some time. I allowed it." Her eyes narrowed slightly, her gaze becoming sharper. "Tell me, what do you seek out here in the vastness of space?" "Knowledge," he answered almost automatically. "Understanding. There's so much out here we don't know, so much to discover. And you—" He gestured to her, to the strange world beyond his cockpit. "You're, well, unlike anything I've ever encountered." She studied him intently, as if peeling back layers of his thoughts, his intentions. "Many have passed through my domain, Captain," she said, her tone soft, but tinged with a distant sadness. "But few have ever truly seen me. Tell me, do you fear the unknown?" Liam hesitated. "I think everyone does to some extent, but fear hasn't stopped me before." "Perhaps that is why you interest me," Amara murmured, a thoughtful glint in her gaze. "You are unafraid of what others flee. You move toward the shadows, the mysteries that consume the souls of others." She took a step closer, and Liam's breath caught in his throat. Her presence was overwhelming. There was an aura around her that defied explanation, a sense of age and power that seeped into the air like an intoxicating perfume. He found himself leaning forward, almost against his will. "Listen, Amara," he said, struggling to keep his voice steady. "I don't mean any harm. I didn't even know this place existed until a few moments ago. If you let me go, I promise, I'll leave you in peace." For a long moment, she was silent. Her gaze seemed to soften, her dark eyes filled with a sadness so profound that it seemed to weigh the air itself. "Leave?" she echoed softly, almost to herself. "Is that what you desire most, Captain Hayes?" The question was almost unsettling in its intensity. I don't know," he admitted, caught off guard by her directness. "I mean, of course I want to return to my mission, but there's something about this place, about you, that I can't seem to look away from." A faint smile graced her lips, a ghostly expression that faded as quickly as it appeared. "That is because you are curious, drawn to what lies beyond the bounds of understanding." She took another step forward, her voice lowering, becoming almost intimate. "But be warned, Captain, some mysteries cannot be solved. Some answers lead only to deeper questions, questions that may consume you." Her words hung heavy in the air, filling the small space between them. For the first time in his life, Liam felt an unease that had nothing to do with physical danger. There was a gravity to her words, a promise of something both wondrous and terrifying. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. Her gaze held his, unwavering. "Perhaps nothing. Or perhaps, I want everything you have to give." A cold shiver ran through him at her words, but he found himself unable to break her gaze. It was as if she had wrapped an invisible thread around him, binding him to her will. "You could release me," he ventured, his voice a strained murmur. "Release you?" Her smile returned, sad and distant. "There is no release from this place, Captain. There is only understanding." With that, the world around them faded, and Liam felt himself falling into an abyss deeper than anything he had ever known. Liam drifted in darkness, disoriented, weightless. He reached out instinctively, grasping at empty air, and then felt solid ground beneath him once more. He blinked, his eyes adjusting to the dim light around him. He was no longer in the cockpit of the ether. Instead, he found himself in a vast, dimly lit hall, its walls stretching out into shadowed infinity. The floors glistened like polished obsidian, reflecting pinpoints of distant starlight. Strange symbols, ancient and unreadable, marked the walls, casting faint, spectral glows. And there, in the center of it all, stood Amara, watching him with that same piercing gaze, her expression unreadable. "What is this place?" he managed, his voice barely more than a whisper, still dizzy from the sudden shift. "This is my domain," she replied, her voice a soft echo that seemed to come from all directions at once. A sanctuary and a prison. Liam took a hesitant step forward, glancing around. But why bring me here? What am I supposed to see? What you see is what you must understand, Captain Hayes. Her gaze softened, yet it held a strange sadness, as though the weight of ages lay upon her slender shoulders. This hall, these walls, they are all that remains of a time-long past. They hold fragments of lives, stories, countless voices lost to the stars, and they are my companions. She extended a slender hand, and as she did, the walls began to glow, faint images swirling within their surface. Liam watched in silent awe as scenes materialized, glimpses of ancient battles, cities bathed in alien light, a people who seemed both like and unlike any race he had ever seen. Who were they? He asked softly, drawn into the flickering memories like a moth to flame. They were once my kin, Amara answered, her voice distant, heavy with regret. My family, my friends, my world. She sighed, a quiet, almost fragile sound that reverberated through the empty space. I watched them rise, and I watched them fall. All of it. So long ago. Liam swallowed, his mind racing as he tried to process the implications of her words. You're the last of them? A faint nod. The last. The only one who remembers. She looked away, as if unable to meet his gaze. The punishment of the ages, Captain Hayes, is not death. It is life. Endless, solitary life. He felt a pang of something unexpected, sympathy, maybe even empathy, as he took in the lonely figure before him. How long have you been here? Longer than you could comprehend, she replied, almost to herself. Her eyes darkened, fixed on a distant memory only she could see. They made me this way. They sealed me to this world, bound me in time as punishment for a discovery they feared. And so I have remained, while the stars have shifted, while empires have risen and crumbled to dust. But why? He took a step closer, unable to mask his curiosity. What could be so dangerous that they would imprison you here? Her gaze snapped back to him, and for a moment a spark of anger flared in her dark eyes. They feared what I had learned. They feared that if the knowledge I possessed spread, it would unravel everything they held sacred. She looked away, her voice softening once more. And in the end, I was left with nothing but eternity. He hesitated, absorbing her words. There was a part of him that wanted to resist, to push back against her story, to cling to the rationality he had always known. But another part, the part of him that had always chased mysteries, that had always longed to see the unknown, felt a strange, inexplicable pull toward her. So, you're saying you've just been here alone for all this time? He asked, his tone softer now, almost hesitant. She nodded, a ghostly smile curving her lips. Until you came, she murmured, her voice almost a whisper. Liam felt a strange warmth rising in his chest, a feeling he could barely understand, let alone explain. He shook his head, trying to keep his thoughts clear. And you're keeping me here because I need someone to bear witness, she replied, stepping closer, her gaze locked onto his. To remember me, to remember them. Her voice held a hint of desperation now, a vulnerability that made his heart ache. You cannot imagine the solitude, the silence that stretches across centuries. When I saw your ship, your presence. Her voice faltered, and she looked away, as if ashamed of her own words. I couldn't let you leave, not yet. Amara. He hesitated, feeling a weight pressing down on him. Part of him wanted to reach out to her, to comfort her, but another part, a stronger part, fought against the feeling. You can't just keep me here. I have a life, a mission, You think I do not understand that? She interrupted, her voice suddenly sharp. She took another step forward, her gaze fierce. Do you think I wanted this? Do you think I wanted to be alone, to be cut off from everything I loved? I'm not saying that, he replied, taken aback by the intensity in her eyes. But holding me here, it's not right. It's cruel? She finished for him, her voice bitter. Yes, perhaps it is. But cruelty and necessity are often indistinguishable when one has endured as long as I have. They stood in silence, her words hanging heavy in the air between them. He could feel her pain, her sorrow, radiating from her like a physical force. And despite his instincts, despite everything telling him to resist, he found himself softening, his resolve faltering. Maybe, he began slowly, his voice hesitant, unsure. Maybe there's a way for both of us to get what we want. Her gaze flicked to him, a faint glimmer of hope in her dark eyes. What do you mean? I mean, if you just let me go back to my ship, let me complete my mission. He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Then I could still come back to see you. I could return. I'd be here by choice, not force. Amara's expression darkened, the glimmer of hope extinguished as quickly as it had appeared. You think I haven't tried that? You think you would be the first to promise me such a thing? She shook her head, her voice thick with sorrow. No, Captain Hayes. All who have left have forgotten me, forgotten everything they learned here. It is part of the curse. Once you leave, all memory of this place, of me, will be erased. Liam felt a cold shiver run down his spine. You're saying I wouldn't remember any of this? Not a single moment, she replied, her voice a quiet, resigned whisper. You would return to your life, continue on your path, oblivious to everything you've seen here. That is the nature of the curse that binds me. He stared at her, stunned, grappling with the weight of her words. All this, the sorrow, the beauty, the mystery, it would all vanish from his mind the moment he left. It was almost too much to comprehend. But, he began, searching for something, anything to hold on to. But there has to be a way. Some way for you to break free. Her gaze softened, a flicker of a sad smile touching her lips. I have searched for millennia, Captain. There is no escape. Only companionship. She took a step closer, reaching out to him, her hand hovering just inches from his face. If you stay, if you choose to remain here, you would be free from the curse's effects, but the decision must be yours. Liam felt a strange tightness in his chest, a pull that seemed to resonate deep within him. The thought of staying with her, of sharing her world, of becoming a part of her endless existence. It was both terrifying and oddly compelling. He swallowed, his mind racing, the weight of the choice pressing down on him like a crushing force. Amara, he murmured, his voice barely audible. I don't know what to say. You don't have to decide now, she whispered, her hand finally reaching him, brushing against his cheek with a feather-light touch. I will not force you. But know this, Captain Hayes. Her gaze deepened, filling with a strange intensity. In all the ages I have endured, I have never met another like you. If you choose to leave, I will lose something I may never find again. The air between them grew heavy, charged with a tension that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. He stared into her eyes, feeling himself drawn into the dark, endless depths, caught between the pull of his own freedom and the strange, inexplicable bond that had formed between them. He had come here searching for knowledge, for adventure. But now, faced with the weight of her words, with the loneliness that lingered in her gaze, he realized he had stumbled into something far deeper, far more complex than he had ever anticipated. Liam stood at the edge of the vast, glimmering hall, Amara's quiet words still echoing in his mind. The silence stretched around them, heavy and consuming as he grappled with the weight of the choice before him. If I stay, he began, breaking the silence, his voice barely more than a whisper. If I choose to stay here, Amara, What happens then? Amara's dark, enigmatic eyes met his, holding him captive with their depth. Then you would become part of this place, she said softly, her voice reverberating through the shadows. You would share my world, my memories, and, in time, my solitude. Her words hung heavy in the air like a binding promise. He searched her face, feeling her loneliness as if it were his own, and in that moment, he knew he was standing on the brink of something that would change him forever. I don't know if I can give up everything, he admitted, his voice wavering. My life, my memories, my freedom. It's too much to ask. A flicker of sadness crossed her face, and she nodded, as if she'd known his answer all along. Then take your leave, Captain Hayes. Go back to your stars, your worlds, your life. She paused, and her expression softened, though her eyes held a resigned sorrow. But know this, if you leave, all that we have shared will fade from your mind. The memory of me, of this place, of all you have seen here, it will vanish, like a dream. A wave of uncertainty washed over him. He felt torn, as if he were being pulled in two directions at once. On one side, the allure of returning to his mission, to his life of exploration and discovery. On the other, the connection he had felt with Amara, a connection that felt both frightening and precious. He took a deep breath. Amara, isn't there any other way? Some way that we could both be free? Her gaze dropped, and for the first time, he saw something akin to vulnerability flicker in her eyes. I once thought there was, she murmured, almost too softly to hear. Long ago I believed that if I could find one who understood, who saw me as I am, then perhaps I could be freed. But no one who has entered this place has stayed. They have all left, and they have all forgotten. He stepped closer, reaching out to her, almost instinctively. Amara, maybe I can stay a little longer, just to try and find a way to break the curse. She shook her head, her expression filled with a sadness that seemed to stretch across centuries. Even if you stayed, Captain, the curse that binds me is not so easily broken. It was crafted by those who wielded powers beyond your imagining. I cannot ask you to sacrifice your life, your dreams for a burden that is not yours to bear. Liam hesitated, feeling a swell of frustration and helplessness. He wanted to help her, to save her from this fate, but every solution seemed to slip through his fingers like sand. Then, if there truly is no way, if leaving means forgetting, he took a deep breath, steadying himself. Let me remember this moment, even if it's only in this moment. Amara looked at him, her gaze filled with a strange mixture of gratitude and sorrow. A fleeting wish, Captain Hayes, she said, her voice almost a whisper. But perhaps it is enough. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, she reached out, placing her hand against his chest. A sudden warmth surged through him, filling him with an energy that felt both foreign and familiar, as if her essence were pouring into him. His vision blurred, and for a moment he glimpsed fragments of her life, her people, her world, her endless solitude. And then, as quickly as it began, the visions faded, and he was left with the overwhelming silence of her presence. I've given you all I can, she whispered, stepping back, her hand lingering against his chest for just a moment longer. A memory, a fragment of my existence. But you must choose, Liam. If you leave, you will forget. But if you stay... He swallowed, feeling the gravity of her words settle within him. He knew that this was it, the final moment, the choice that would determine everything. I have to leave, he said at last, his voice thick with regret. I can't abandon my life, Amara, but... He hesitated, the words catching in his throat. I won't forget you, even if the curse says I will. A faint, bittersweet smile curved her lips. Then go, Captain Hayes. Return to your stars. But remember, some part of me will remain with you, even if you cannot recall my name. He took one last, lingering look at her, etching every detail into his memory. And then, with a heavy heart, he turned and stepped away, moving back through the darkened hall, back toward the light. The world around him began to blur, colors shifting and swirling, until he felt himself pulled upward, back toward the familiar confines of his ship. The sensation of weight returned, the cold solidity of the floor beneath his boots, and the hum of the ether's systems enveloped him once more. He looked around, disoriented, his mind foggy, as though he had just woken from a deep sleep. "Alana," he murmured, his voice hoarse. "Alana, what's our status?" "Systems nominal, Captain," the AI replied, her voice calm and even. "We are holding position within standard space." He rubbed his temples, a faint nagging ache throbbing at the back of his mind. I feel like I was just—" His voice trailed off, and he frowned, struggling to piece together the fragments of his memory. But try as he might, the details remained elusive, slipping further and further from his grasp. All he could recall was a sense of profound emptiness, a strange feeling of loss that he couldn't explain. "Captain?" Alana's voice broke through his thoughts, gentle and unobtrusive. "Is everything all right?" "Yeah, I think so," he replied, though the words felt hollow. He glanced out at the stars, a vague sense of longing filling his chest. There was something he was missing, something important, but he couldn't for the life of him remember what it was. Taking a deep breath, he turned back to the controls, setting the ship on course toward the next sector of space. The vast emptiness stretched before him, silent and infinite, and yet he felt a strange sense of peace, as if a presence lingered somewhere in the quiet. Just as he was about to engage the thrusters, he caught a glimpse of his reflection in the cockpit's glass. His hand went to his chest, where a faint silvery mark glimmered just beneath his shirt. A small, intricate symbol, almost like a piece of jewelry embedded in his skin. A chill ran down his spine as he stared at it, his mind racing with questions he could not answer. The symbol felt familiar, as though it were tied to something precious, something he had lost and yet still held within him. "Alana," he began, his voice barely more than a whisper. "Do you see this? This mark?" But the AI remained silent, as if unable to detect the symbol at all. And then, in a flash, he heard a voice, a soft, distant whisper that seemed to echo from the depths of his mind. "Remember me, Liam," it murmured, as faint as a breath on the wind. "Even if you cannot recall my face, remember that I was here." He closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of her presence settle within him, lingering like a faint memory, half-formed and yet somehow eternal. He knew deep down that he would never truly be able to forget her, that somehow she would always be with him, a part of his soul that no curse could erase. And as the ether drifted through the silent expanse, he felt a strange sense of peace settle over him, a quiet certainty that, wherever he went, he would carry her memory, hidden but unbreakable, an echo of a love that had spanned the ages. Liam set a course into the starlit unknown, and as the ship surged forward, he knew that no matter where he traveled, a part of him would always look back, bound forever to the immortal woman who had changed his life in ways he would never fully understand. The fog hung thick over the forest floor, winding like pale ribbons through towering alien trees, with twisted trunks and sprawling sickly leaves. Light from the setting sun bled through in slashes of orange and violet, casting everything in a dark, ghostly glow. I crept along the roots, my breath shallow as I kept my eyes open for movement. Every rustle sent a chill down my spine, every shadow a reminder of just how isolated and possibly doomed I was on this uncharted planet. "I knew this expedition was cursed from the start," I muttered, barely a whisper. My voice seemed to disappear into the gloom, as if swallowed by the forest itself. Then, a sound behind me, a low, soft murmur. I spun around, my flashlight trembling, casting a thin line of light over moss-covered stones and shadowy growths. I gripped my tool, a flimsy piece of metal from the broken equipment, and felt its edge dig into my palm. A sharp pain, grounding me in the moment. Stay calm, I told myself. Get through the night and then figure out an exit plan. Exit? A voice echoed, so close it felt like a breath on my ear. I stumbled back, the flashlight's beam jerking wildly, illuminating a face, long, pale, and eerily calm. Her skin was a shade of silver that glistened under the damp light, smooth yet crisscrossed by faint scars. Her eyes, dark as endless pits, gleamed with something indescribable. A hunger, a curiosity, maybe both. You, she said, her voice soft yet somehow filling the air like the rumble of distant thunder. Why have you come here, outsider? I swallowed, forcing words out past the dryness in my throat. I'm part of an expedition. We were exploring, cataloging. I got separated. Her mouth curved into a smile, slow and unsettling. Exploring, she murmured, the word stretching on her tongue as if it were something foreign, something to be tasted and judged. You are lost, then. Yes, I admitted, tensing. Look, I don't mean any harm. I just need to find my way back to my ship. I took a cautious step back, careful not to break eye contact. Her gaze tracked me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. You will not leave, she said simply, a statement as solid as stone. Her tone wasn't threatening, just cold, a declaration of fact. What do you mean? I managed, my voice almost a whisper. She tilted her head, studying me as if she could peel back my skin with just a glance and see everything inside. I have seen many of your kind wander here, she said. Hunters, explorers, scavengers. They all come seeking knowledge, profit, some meaning, but none have seen the truth. What truth? I asked, against my better judgment. My heart hammered in my chest, my instinct screaming for me to turn and run, but her words pulled me in, snaring me like a lure. Her smile widened, baring teeth sharper than any human's. The truth of survival, of continuity. She moved closer, her form blending almost seamlessly with the shadows, her movements too fluid, too graceful. We were once many, my people, the Aerith, but time has whittled us down. We are scattered now like dust. Only the strong survive here, outsider. And you? You're one of the last? I asked, my voice barely above a murmur. She nodded slowly, a strange glimmer of sorrow flickering through her gaze, gone almost before I registered it. Yes, the last perhaps with the strength to continue. But strength alone is not enough. Her fingers, long and thin, tipped with sharp claws, grazed the side of my face, sending a shock of cold through me. Your kind, humans, they are resilient, adaptable. You possess something I need. I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to recoil. What do you need? She leaned closer, and for the first time, I noticed the faint scent around her, like metal and earth, a strange mix that sent a fresh wave of alarm through me. There is an old ritual among the Aerith, she began, her voice softer, almost wistful. A bond, forged in survival and need. Without it, I will fade, just like my kin. You want to bond with me? The words felt absurd coming out, and yet looking at her, I felt the weight of them like a stone in my chest. Her gaze softened, though her expression remained unreadable. Do not mistake this for desire, outsider, she said coldly. This is necessity. I need you to survive, nothing more. What happens if I refuse? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, almost afraid to know the answer. A glimmer of something cruel flickered in her eyes, and she leaned in close, so close I could feel the cold radiating off her skin. Refusal? She repeated, the word laced with dark amusement. There is no refusal here. You are bound by fate, by chance, and by me. I swallowed hard, the weight of her words pressing down like an iron shackle. My mind raced, desperate to find an escape route, an angle, anything. But why me? I asked, grasping at straws. There must be others. Others! Her laughter echoed through the trees, a hollow, chilling sound. They do not possess what you do. You are a rare find, an outsider with something more. My mouth went dry. More? What do you mean? Your kind, she said, her voice dropping to a low murmur. You carry an essence, a resilience that I need. You are not merely a vessel. You are a key, forged in adaptation and survival. I have searched for one like you for years. Her fingers brushed against my arm, sending a prickling sensation down to my fingertips. I tried to pull away, but her grip was iron. Look, whatever you think I am, I'm just a man, an ordinary human. I can't be what you need. Ordinary? She repeated, her tone turning contemplative. We will see. A strange quiet settled over us, thick and suffocating. I stared at her, feeling a growing sense of helplessness as I tried to piece together some way out of this. Every instinct I had screamed to run to escape, but her gaze pinned me in place, an invisible chain binding me to this dark, desolate fate. What happens now? I asked, my voice hollow, echoing off the thick trunks around us. She tilted her head, her gaze flickering with that same dark hunger. Now you accept that your life belongs to me, and that I will take from you what I need. But first, we must prepare. The words sank like stones into my mind, and I knew that from this point forward, escape was not an option. The forest seemed to close in tighter, the shadows growing deeper, and I could feel the weight of her expectation pressing down on me, heavy and inescapable. The silence grew thick as I processed her words. The dark forest loomed around us, an audience to this bizarre, predatory exchange. Her eyes held mine with a fixed, unsettling gaze, as if daring me to resist, to deny the inevitability of her claim. I swallowed hard, the gravity of my situation settling in like a lead weight. What exactly do you mean by prepare? I ventured, barely able to keep the tremor from my voice. She arched a brow, her lips twisting into a faint, sardonic smile. Even now your heart races. Fear runs through you like blood through a vein. Do not worry, outsider. For now, you are safe. I have no use for your fear. Yet. Comforting, I muttered, the sarcasm slipping out before I could stop it. Her gaze sharpened, narrowing on me as her clawed fingers lifted to my chin. She tilted my face toward hers, studying me as though I were some ancient, fragile artifact she'd just uncovered. Your defiance is amusing if misplaced, she murmured, but soon you will understand. Come with me, willingly, and I may even show you mercy. You want me to follow you? Just like that? I laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. After telling me you need me for some ritual that I don't understand. You will understand in time, she replied, unfazed. But remember this, human. Whether you come willing or resist, the outcome will be the same. The universe brought you to me, and I am patient. I felt a chill snake through me as her words settled in, layered with an eerie calm. I scanned her face, searching for any trace of compassion, of humanity, anything that might reveal this to be some kind of warped joke. But her expression remained fixed, severe, her dark eyes unwavering. All right, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll go with you. She smiled, a look that held no warmth, only satisfaction. Good, she said. Resistance is wasted energy, and I do not like waste. With a swift, graceful turn, she began to move deeper into the forest, her movements fluid and soundless. I forced myself to follow, each step taken with reluctance, my mind racing. Shadows shifted around us, bending to her presence, and the damp forest floor muffled our steps, creating a surreal quiet that seemed to throb in the stillness. Where are we going? I asked, my voice tense, though I was careful not to let it betray the fear coiling inside me. To a place where the old ways still linger, she replied, casting a glance back over her shoulder, a place that holds the memories of my kind. It will help you understand your purpose in this. Do I even have a choice in understanding? She stopped abruptly, turning to face me. Her eyes gleamed with something close to impatience. You ask too many questions, outsider. Maybe that's because I have no idea what's happening, I shot back, surprising myself with the boldness in my voice. You've taken me, told me I'm part of some ritual, that I'm a key, but you haven't explained why. Her jaw tightened, and for a moment I thought she might lash out. Instead, she took a slow breath, her gaze softening just slightly. Very well, she said. I will tell you this much. Long ago, my people formed bonds with creatures like you. It was a symbiosis of sorts, a way to strengthen us to carry on our legacy. Over time, the bond became ritual, an ancient tradition meant to bind our fates with those of another, to share our essence. Without it, we fade. We wither. You're telling me this is about survival? I asked, struggling to make sense of her words. You need me because you can't live without bonding? It is not so simple, she replied, her gaze distant. This bond goes beyond mere survival. It is a way to preserve the memory, the spirit of what we once were. I am the last of my line, and without this connection, I will disappear, just as my kin have. But why me? I'm just an ordinary human. She tilted her head, her expression contemplative. That is the question, isn't it? Perhaps it is fate that brought you here. Perhaps the universe itself wishes for my kind to survive. Or perhaps it is mere chance. Either way, you are here, and I have need of you. I shook my head, trying to process her words. And if I refuse? Her lips curved into a small, humorless smile. Refusal is a luxury you do not possess. Silence fell between us as her words sank in. I stared at her, feeling the weight of inevitability settle like a stone in my chest. There was no escape, no chance of bargaining my way out. Whatever fate she had in store for me, I was trapped, ensnared by forces I couldn't begin to understand. We continued walking, the forest growing darker as the canopy thickened overhead. Strange, luminous plants pulsed with a faint, eerie glow, casting ghostly shadows that danced in the periphery of my vision. I felt as if I were walking through some twisted dreamscape, a place that defied all logic and reason. Finally, we reached a clearing, where an ancient structure stood in the center, a towering stone altar covered in strange symbols, weathered and worn by time. The air was thick with a heavy metallic scent, and a strange energy seemed to pulse from the stones, as if they held a life of their own. This, she said, gesturing to the altar, is where the ritual will take place. I took a step back, dread coiling in my gut. What does this ritual involve? Her eyes gleamed with a dark light as she stepped closer, her gaze locking onto mine. You will see soon enough. For now you must wait here. There are preparations to be made. With that, she turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving me alone in the clearing, with only the ominous presence of the altar and the suffocating quiet of the forest. I felt the weight of her absence, a tangible force that pressed down on me, filling me with a sense of dread that gnawed at my insides. I ran a hand over the stone, feeling its cold surface beneath my fingertips. The symbols carved into it were strange and unfamiliar, their meaning lost to time. But as I traced the lines, a strange warmth spread through me, a tingling sensation that seemed to seep into my bones. What am I doing here? I muttered, pulling my hand back as if burned. The question echoed in the empty clearing, swallowed by the silence that pressed in from all sides. Moments passed, and then I heard her footsteps approaching once more, soft and steady, like the beat of a distant drum. She emerged from the shadows, carrying a small vial filled with a shimmering, iridescent liquid. Her expression was unreadable, her gaze fixed on the altar as she approached. "What's that?" I asked, eyeing the vial with suspicion. "This," she replied, holding it up so the light caught its surface, casting tiny rainbows across her face, "is the essence of my kin. It is all that remains of their memory, their spirit. It is what I seek to pass on through you." I took a step back, the implications of her words settling like a weight in my chest. "And you expect me to drink that?" She nodded, her gaze unwavering. "You must. It is the only way for the bond to take hold, for my kin's memory to live on. If you refuse, then both you and I will fade, lost to time." I stared at the vial, feeling a chill settle over me. This was more than I'd bargained for, more than I could have imagined. But as I looked at her, at the determination in her eyes, I felt a strange, inexplicable pull, a sense that my fate was somehow tied to hers, bound by forces beyond my understanding. Slowly I reached out, my hand trembling as I took the vial from her. The liquid inside seemed to pulse with a faint light, as if it held a life of its own, waiting to be released. "Drink," she said, her voice a low, commanding whisper, "and know that in doing so, you become part of something ancient, something that transcends life and death." I took a deep breath, steeling myself as I lifted the vial to my lips. The liquid was cool and smooth, sliding down my throat with a strange, otherworldly warmth that spread through my body, filling me with a sensation that was both exhilarating and terrifying. As the last drop disappeared, I felt a surge of energy, a flood of memories not my own, visions of a world long gone, of beings I'd never known. My mind spun, overwhelmed by the onslaught of sensations, of voices whispering in a language I couldn't understand, and then everything went dark. Darkness held me tightly, wrapping my mind in strange swirling visions, flashes of alien landscapes, vast cities under alien skies, ancient rituals performed by beings I had never known. All of it felt so real, like a flood of memories pouring into me from a lifetime that wasn't mine. And through it all, her presence was there, a constant, whispering voice guiding me through these fragments of her forgotten world. I gasped as I came to, blinking against the cool night air that prickled my skin. I was lying on the forest floor beside the ancient altar, and she was there, watching me with a strange intensity, her gaze unwavering. "You are awake," she said softly, her voice laced with satisfaction. "The ritual has begun to take hold. The memories, have they started?" "Yes," I muttered, still disoriented. "But they don't make any sense. They're just pieces, images, fragments of something ancient." "Good," she replied, a rare softness in her voice. "In time, they will bind themselves to you, become part of you. You are now the last vessel of my kind's memory, the living repository of everything we once were." I sat up slowly, feeling the weight of her words. "So, this was it? You needed me to carry these memories? To keep them alive?" Her gaze softened, a glimmer of something almost human in her expression. "Yes, but there is one final step, one last bond that must be forged." I looked at her warily, feeling an instinctive dread at the gravity in her tone. "What else do you want from me?" She reached out, brushing her fingers against my cheek. Her touch was surprisingly gentle, and I felt a strange warmth spread through me. "There is one last piece of our legacy, something that cannot be conveyed through memory alone. It must be shared, through a union, a binding of spirits." Her voice dropped to a whisper, her gaze dark and intense. "You must become more than a vessel. You must become kin." I flinched, pulling back from her touch. "Kin? You mean—" "Yes." Her gaze held mine, steady and unflinching. "To complete the bond, you must join me. In every way, it is the only way for my kind's essence to truly survive, to be reborn." I struggled to process her words, to understand the full weight of what she was asking. "And what happens if I refuse?" Her expression hardened, a hint of sorrow flickering in her eyes. "If you refuse, then my people's legacy will end here, with me. I will die, and our memory will fade into oblivion. And you will remain bound to these fragments, haunted by glimpses of a world you cannot understand, tormented by a longing that has no resolution. I looked away, grappling with the choice before me. Part of me wanted to reject her, to flee this dark forest and escape this strange, haunting ordeal. But another part of me felt an inexplicable pull, a strange, almost magnetic connection that bound me to her people, to this ancient legacy that I now carried. What if I do it? I asked quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. What happens then? Her gaze softened, her expression almost tender. Then you will not be alone. You will carry my kind spirit within you, not as a burden, but as a part of yourself. You will be the last of us, the bridge between worlds, the one who remembers what has been lost. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words settle over me. I was terrified, but something deeper compelled me, a strange sense of purpose that had taken root within me. Then, I'll do it, I said finally, my voice shaking but resolute. I'll finish this. I'll join you. Her face softened into an expression of relief, a faint, almost vulnerable smile breaking through her usual stoic demeanor. Thank you, human. You do not know what this means to me, to my people. She took my hands in hers, her grip firm yet gentle, her dark eyes locking onto mine. I felt a surge of warmth, a connection that seemed to go beyond the physical, reaching into the deepest parts of me, binding us together in a way I couldn't explain. Close your eyes, she whispered, her voice a soothing murmur. This will be unlike anything you have ever experienced. I obeyed, letting my eyes drift shut. A strange warmth enveloped me, a sensation that seemed to seep into my very soul, filling me with an indescribable energy. I felt her presence all around me, within me, a melding of minds and spirits that went beyond mere touch, beyond words. Moments passed in a haze of light and warmth, a sensation that felt timeless, transcendent. And then slowly, I felt the world begin to fade back into focus, the connection between us settling into something calm, steady, an unbreakable bond that now lay within me like a heartbeat. I opened my eyes, meeting her gaze. She looked different somehow, her expression softer, almost human. It is done, she murmured, a note of awe in her voice. The bond is complete. I felt a strange, unexpected peace settle over me, as though a part of me had finally found its place, its purpose. So, this is it? I asked, feeling a surge of relief, of release. It's over? Yes, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. We are bound, our spirits intertwined, my people's memory, their essence. It will live on within you, a part of you. We stood there in silence, the forest around us alive with a newfound energy, a sense of peace that seemed to echo through the trees. I felt as if a great weight had been lifted from me, as if I had been given a purpose, a reason for being here. Thank you, she said finally, her voice soft, almost reverent. You have given my people a second chance, a way to live on. You are no longer just a human. You are one of us. A faint smile tugged at my lips. And what does that make me now? She looked at me, a glint of mischief in her eyes. It makes you the last of a kind, the bearer of an ancient legacy, and perhaps one day it will make you a leader, a bridge between worlds. I laughed, the sound echoing through the clearing. I don't know if I'm ready for that. She smiled, a warm, genuine expression that transformed her face. You will be. In time. We stood there in silence, the weight of our shared bond settling between us, a quiet, unbreakable connection that would bind us for the rest of our lives. And as I looked into her eyes, I felt a strange, overwhelming sense of peace, of belonging. I had come to this place as an outsider, a stranger. But now, I was something more. I was part of a legacy, a bridge between worlds, a vessel of ancient memory. And for the first time, I felt truly, deeply alive.